All right, President Bush talked a whole lot today. It was about a 60-minute news conference, I think. But he really never mentioned the dollar, not once. And he wasn't even asked a dollar question by the goofball mainstream media. Apparently, he does not want to abolish ethanol mandates either, and he really didn't get to the politics of high prices at the pump in the grocery store. And that's interesting because this is a killer issue for the November elections. Here now we have CNBC contributor Jared Bernstein, Economic Policy Institute, author of the new book, Crunch. I believe he's selling his millionth copy and making a fortune. So henceforth, Jared will be in favor of a low capital gains tax.
Hey, that supply-side economic stuff sounds pretty good all of a sudden.
You know, when you get rich, Jared, you want a low capital gains tax. And we also have back DeRoy Murdoch, syndicated columnist, Scripps Howard, senior fellow, Atlas Economic Research Foundation, plus the rest of our panel, Luskin, Battipaglia, Bowyer, Greenberg. So, I don't know if you heard the clip or not, DeRoy, but I kind of listened to much of what the president said today, and one thing I did not hear is any idea of a rollback of the ethanol mandate, a rollback of the ethanol subsidies, and how ethanol is driving food prices up like crazy. Now, DeRoy, you wrote the book on this in terms of your great article last week. Did you hear it? What do you make of this? And is Mr. Bush just dodging it?
I think he really dodged it, unfortunately. He says that ethanol is only responsible for about 15% of the volatility we're seeing with higher grocery prices in the United States and actual food riots around the world, and a situation so bad in Haiti that people are so starved for cheap food that they're now eating cookies made out of salt, oil, and dirt. I mean, that's how bad the situation is. Bush should have taken a bold move and said, look, I want to repeal the ethanol mandate, get rid of the subsidy, and get rid of the tariffs that make it very expensive to import Brazilian ethanol, which is more efficiently produced and more cheaply produced, and have a free market in fuel in that respect. And instead, he seems to be defending this program. He has nothing to lose. He's a lame duck. He's leaving, and he really should show some leadership and kill this program, shoot it, bury it, and turn around and walk away.
Take him behind the barn and shoot it. But Jared Bernstein, why didn't he? Why didn't he? And, you know, I see Republicans lining up behind Senator Kay Bailey Hutchison to freeze the additional ethanol mandate. I mean, as the first one wasn't bad enough, as DeRoy has explained, there's a new one that's going to actually raise the goals for ethanol. Democrats are not signing on. Republicans are signing on in large force. Why do you think President Bush, is he afraid of Democrats? Is that why he's holding back?
Well, Chuck Grassley's not a Democrat. Iowa's very much a Republican area. Look, we have 25% of our corn stock, is my understanding, in the ethanol program. Where I come from in Washington, D.C., you know how they say you make ethanol, you combine corn and tax subsidies. Those subsidies mean a lot to a lot of people, so I think the intuition behind your question is right. This is a political move, and as the former as Delroy just said, this is no time for politics. Even before this crisis, many of us argued that we're putting too many eggs in this particular ethanol basket, and it is distortionary.
So you agree with DeRoy? You agree with DeRoy? You're a Republican on this issue.
I think there's one way to make this palatable to farmers. That is to say, look, we screwed up. We promised you this mandate, and to make it up to you, we're going to get rid of this mandate. We're going to make it up to you this way. 2-year tax holiday. Make as much money as you want. Don't bother filing your taxes for 2 years. It's our way of giving you something back for all of your troubles. And I think a lot of farmers will say, you know what, I can live with that. And I think then we'll be able to build up some political support for this.
Jerry Bowyer, President never once mentioned the dollar. I mean, if you're looking for a fast something to relieve the pressure on energy, on gasoline prices at the pump, on food. One great way to do it would be to appreciate the U.S. greenback by about 15%. We're already seeing commodities crack in the open market, Jerry, and yet the president didn't mention the dollar, and none of the goofball mainstream media at that news conference. Nobody even asked him a dollar question. What do you make of that, Jerry?
Well, yeah, Larry, I don't think he cares about it. That's what I make of that. I mean, the Bush administration has spent most of its time in office jawboning the dollar down, trying to appreciate the yuan against the dollar. I don't care what they say about a strong dollar policy. Look, I'm a Bush supporter. I wrote a book in support of the president. But they have been a disaster on the dollar since the first time they mentioned the word dollar in public.
But Larry,
it's their way of doing protectionism.
What would you and Jerry have Bush do? I mean, the Fed is going to cut interest rates. I mean, what policy do you guys? I'm really interested. What would you like to see the president do to boost the value of the dollar?
What they ought to do is dollar diplomacy. What they ought to do is work with other central bankers around the world to bring the dollar back up. They want it too. And the other thing is that what that would do is that would really put the pressure on Bernanke. If we say very strongly we have a strong dollar policy, that creates a power shift on the Fed board where it gets him in a position where he can stop cutting and start holding.
Jerry, I don't see why that would work. I mean, we have something like a recession ongoing. We have a very high trade deficit. We have a financial market that's in a crunch. We have the housing stuff we all talked about.
We have a high trade deficit, and we've had a weakening dollar.
Why should dollar diplomacy work right now?
So this thing about the trade deficit being... All right, listen. You just said it yourself. We've had a weakening dollar, and yet we have a high trade deficit. A weak dollar doesn't solve the trade deficit.
No, the trade deficit is coming down. The trade deficit is coming down because of the weak dollar.
I think the opportunity...
No, it's not coming down. It's high.
I think there's a risk here that if the dollar goes down even further after this rate cut, if we do get a rate cut tomorrow, I think at some point the OPEC countries are going to say, you know what, why do we have our oil denominated in dollars? We want oil denominated in euros. If that happens, I think we're going to be in worse shape.
The administration
that is so important. No, but let me just make this point. I think leadership starts at the very top. He's the commander-in-chief of the economy as well as the commander-in-chief of our national security. He needs to say at these news conferences, I want a stronger dollar. I want to appreciate the dollar because I know that the price of energy commodities and food commodities are priced in dollars. And therefore, a small thing we can do that might help relieve the pressures out there is to get the dollar up and get those prices down. That may not be the only solution.
So you want the president, you want the president to push in the opposite direction of the Fed.
Well, the Fed may be doing it, as Don Luskin has told us, because if the Fed stops easing tomorrow, and if the futures market is pricing in mini rate hikes, then the Fed may do its part. But the deal has to be clinched. Wait a second. There's the president. There's another officer in the U.S. government, Jared. His name is Paulson, the Treasury Secretary.
Yeah, but Larry, the problem
They have the play on the dollar. He should say something. The G7 wants to do it. It's the Treasury, I'm told, that doesn't want to do it.
He's been very quiet about this whole thing.
With imbalances in trade and a desire for the Chinese to reevaluate their currency upward, the only place they had left to go to support the dollar was to get the Federal Reserve to understand that and to not move so quickly in cutting rates. Instead, they set him free and set him on Congress to say, let loose the floodgates. Let's spend our way out of the recession. Let's fix the housing market, and I'm going to dramatically cut rates.
But you know
and that's how he squandered his opportunity while saying he wanted a strong dollar.
But the question I'm asking, Don Luskin, on this program, given today's trading with the collapse of commodities and commodity stocks, is there a game-changing policy that is developing, Don Luskin? That's the stock market question.
But I agree with Jared. Believe it or not, and believe me, it tastes like eating one of those Haitian dirt cookies to say I agree with Jared Bernstein. But he's right. The play is with the Fed. It's not with the President. It's not with the Treasury Secretary. Right. The dollar's been appreciating for 2 months because 2 months ago is when Fed policy changed.
Hang around, Don. Your education is not yet complete.
All right. I can't agree. I think the Treasury has to play a role, and I think the President has to play a role, and I think we got to take a commercial break because we are a profit-maximizing television show. Everybody, please stay exactly where you are. I want to talk more about Mr. Bush's news conference today. He did vote to abolish farm subsidies